Now, I've gone ahead and I have cut out, I've rolled out with a rolling pin and cut out my shape of my clay. And I've made sure it's very loosely placed on my table. I don't want to push too hard on this because I do not want this clay to stick to my table. So every once in a while, I might have to move it around. And that's a good idea just to make sure your project is moved around every so often so it is not stuck to the table when it's time to remove it. Now, first of all, we're going to make eyes. So I'm going to make 2 clay balls that are roughly the same size using some of the scraps of clay that I had cut out. So I'm going to try to get them as close to the same size as possible. Here we go. I'm going to put the eyes on my clay. Now, in order to fully attach them, I'm going to need to do a couple things. I'm going to need to follow the 4 S's of attaching clay to another thing, to 2 pieces of clay. One is score, which I'm going to use a tool, and I'm going to dig some ditches into both sides of what I want to press together. Next is slip, which is I'm going to take water and I'm going to fill up and kind of make muddy both sides in there. And then next is squish. I'm going to squish both of these pieces of clay together. And then last is smear. And I'm just going to kind of smear around, getting rid of any sort of pockets of air that I can. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Score. Score. Slip. Slip. Now, it's very important to slip in there because if you don't put slip, you're going to get little air pockets. And air pockets will cause your clay to create a heat bubble in the kiln. And that heat bubble will expand and eventually cause your clay to crumble. It'll make a big pocket and it can explode out. All right. Just going to go ahead and make sure that I'm not pressed down onto my table with all that smushing. All right. Now I'm going to take a tool. In this case, I'm just using a plastic spoon, and I am making a hole for my iris right there. And now I'm going to take a roll of clay and do the same thing. Slip, score. I'm going to push this to make the eyelids of the eye. So I'm going to have one going underneath. And I'm going to do another one up top. And just for the, just to make this a little bit faster, I'm going to skip some of my scoring and slipping. Actually, no, I shouldn't. That's a bad example. So I will go back in, score, make all the little indentations, put the slip in there, smush, smear. Do the same thing on the other side. Slip, score, smush, smear. And what I'm doing is building up the eyelids around the eyes on this. And I can do this again to kind of make some softer eyes that aren't so kind of buggy. Just kind of creating a little thin eyelid. This one got a little too thin, so I'm going to just make a nice little round part over that, just using the method of making snakes like kindergarten. Okay. Smear this out a little bit, just get a little better connection. Just keep doing that smear. Making very, very nice clean line. Now, I've been pushing down on my clay a lot, so I'm going to just go ahead and lift up. There we go. Now, I am going to add a nose. And for a nose, I'm just going to take a piece of clay. I'm just going to fold it over, kind of make a big triangle. And one edge of the triangle, I'm going to make kind of sharp. The other edges, I'm going to try to kind of round off a little bit with my fingertips, making the nose shape. I'm going to take slip, put that on there, score, smush, and smear. It's pretty repetitive, but if you don't do this, you're not going to have a very good adhesion of your clay, and things are just going to fall apart, or worse, in the kiln, it'll just kind of explode out. Okay, now for the mouth, I'm going to add kind of a teeth layer first. And it might seem weird to add the teeth before you add any sort of lips, but I'm just going to kind of come in and I'm going to make several teeth just by kind of taking some squares. Going to score, slip, and smush. I'm just kind of putting a couple teeth here, kind of raising them up. A little two front teeth there. He won't look buck-toothed after we add our lips, but right now it looks pretty buck-toothed. Move our nose up a little bit, add this lip in, smear after we squish, because we scored and we slipped already. Now we are going to score, slip, smush, and smear. All right. Now I've got a pretty funny looking face right here. I'm going to add some cheekbones. Taking a chunk of clay. Throwing some slip in here. Smushing it up. Oh, got I'm going to use my finger to kind of round that off to really make it look like a big rosy cheek, like the person is definitely big and smiling. You want to try to use the same size on the other side of the face, otherwise it'll kind of look a little unbalanced. Go. Add a little bit more to the sides of our nose, and then we'll add some nostrils. Add a little slip in there. Use the slip to make sure there's no air pockets. Same thing, doing a lot, just using a lot of little snakes that we make. Nose is getting a little pointy. Let me just add a ball of clay here. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to just add two little sides over here for the nostrils. About the same size of clay, just kind of made into a U and pressed in along the edge. All right. Going in with my finger, wet with some slip, and just going around making sure all my edges are sealed. If I want to add any more details, like maybe a little bit more upper lip, I'll go in there and do that.